Good morning, everyone. This is John Shaw, the director of the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute at SIU in Carbondale. Thanks for joining another installment of our series, Meet the Mayor. And today we're very privileged to be joined by the mayor of Peoria, Jim Ardis. Mayor Ardis is a lifelong resident of Peoria. We attended the same high school a few years ago. I was a couple years ahead of the mayor, but he comes from a great, wonderful family in Peoria. Went to ISU as an undergrad, came back to Peoria, worked in the business community, and then was elected to the city council in 1999, then was elected mayor in 2005, and announced that he will not be running for re-election, but he will be ending a 16-year tenure, very consequential, very important, as the second longest serving mayor in Peoria's history. So Mayor Ardis, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, John. Thank you.
Well, Jim, tell us a little bit about your family. I know you were the second of 9 children. And the thing as I'm reading about your family, your dad and both your grandfather were involved in local government. I think your grandpa was a county clerk and your dad was on the city council. Did that kind of get the political bug in you, or how did that work?
Yeah, I think it kind of did, John. So it was my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, John Bolger, was the county clerk in Peoria for a long time as I grew up. And then my father was on the city council. He just served one term from 69 to 73. And but that probably was the most influential part on me, at least, getting interested in local politics. I remember I would have been barely in double digits at that time. Once or twice a year, I'd be able to go down with him and sit back in the gallery and watch the council meetings. And it kind of just really hypnotized me to see these folks sitting around this horseshoe making all these what seemed like monumental decisions that impacted the daily life of everybody. And I think I just took an interest to it back then, and it followed through my life. But no, I was the second oldest of 9 children, good Catholic family, went to St. Cecilia's grade school, which I was the last graduating class. And then as you did, graduated from Spalding Institute, which that also closed. So, luckily my alma mater at Illinois State hasn't closed yet, because all my other institutions of learning seem to go on the wayside.
But it's interesting, I mean, for your dad, he's the father of 9 kids, so he has a few things going on. And the fact that he would even take time to run for city council and devote, 4 years of his life to that must have sent some message that this was important work for people to do.
Yeah, it seems like most people that get involved, especially at the local government level, usually have some, issue. It seems like almost a single issue that became their burning platform to run for office, to get involved and to try to have a voice in some type of change. And at the time, there was a group of those guys. Actually, almost the whole slate on the city council had pretty stiff competition from a younger group that was opposed to higher taxes, and they really wanted to push back, which it's kind of ironic that that's pretty much the big complaint today, especially in our state. But that's what a lot of these guys were really carrying the flag for. And there was a huge turnover on the city council in 69. And the incumbent mayor, Bob Lenhausen, who is very distinguished veteran, very distinguished business person in Peoria, and very popular mayor. But he and I think 7 out of the 10 council members all flipped that year.
Wow. No, Jim, you went to ISU and then you came back to Peoria, were involved in some business. And then one of the first parts of public service, you were on the Peoria Liquor Commission. And I've often wondered, how does that work? First of all, what did you learn by being on the commission? And then also kind of broadly, how does it work? Are there X number of licenses for the city of Peoria, and it's kind of a zero-sum game? If someone leaves the industry, someone else comes in? Or give us kind of a primer on how that works.
Okay, so first, my background on the business side was bar restaurant business for about 16, 17 years. So when I left that, sold the last business, having that type of experience was, I think, appealing to the Liquor Commission to have someone that actually worked in the industry and understood it. So I was appointed to fill that seat. Most communities are, it's kind of all over the board. Some communities have X number of licenses, and if one were to close or give it back, there'd be one open. But typically what happens in those situations is, there's such commodities that the people that are holding those licenses really can command a lot for them. Peoria, long before I was involved, decades ago, eliminated that process just because it really contributed more to graft, if you will. I mean, we had several people in town that literally had control of, 20, 30 liquor licenses. And so it was a lot of power, and it really didn't, I don't think it contributed significantly in a positive way to benefiting the business community. So Peoria, if you go through a process for site approval, just to make sure it's an appropriate site, it's a certain distance away from a church or a school or certain types of locations that it's not appropriate to serve alcohol in, then typically they can get approval for their license. And then it would depend on whether it was just going to be like a neighborhood pub or a restaurant or any number of different license classifications.
Well, what did you learn on that commission? I mean, were you constantly being lobbied by people, or did it give you kind of a sense for, how power operated and moved in Peoria, or what were your sort of takeaways from that experience?
I had a real thorough understanding of the liquor industry and the bar restaurant business. So I really was able to lend that type of knowledge and substance matter expertise, if you will, to the other commissioners who may not have had, quite that depth and breadth of experience. And we didn't get lobbied really hard. I mean, people would come through and they either had the right zoning. If they didn't have the right zoning, they weren't going to come before the Liquor Commission. So they'd have to get the appropriate zoning first, and they would come to us for approval. And then it's just a matter of is it a good fit? I mean, we still to this day. I mean, I was on the Liquor Commission 25 years ago, but since then, being on the City Council, we really look at the appropriateness of adding more liquor licenses in the community. So typically, if you're talking about a strip center, a retail area that wants to sell alcohol along with food and so on, it's usually, it doesn't really raise a lot of eyebrows. But, liquor stores in places that cater more specifically just to the alcohol side probably get a lot more scrutiny right now, just because of, in many cases, the impact that they have on the neighborhoods that they want to locate in.
Okay. Well, so Jim, you served in the City Council. You were elected in '99, and then you were elected mayor in 2005. And let's talk for a second about just the structure of how city government works in Peoria, because there's a mayor, there's a city manager, and then a 10-person city council, 5 of whom represent geographic districts, 5 who are at large. Tell us how, who has what responsibility, particularly between the mayor, the city council, and the city planner. How does that all work?
So Peoria has a city manager form of government. So the city manager actually runs the day-to-day operations of the city. Contrast that to several cities in Illinois that still have a strong mayor form of government, where the mayor is the day-to-day guy or lady, and they run the day-to-day operations of the city. Chicago does it, Springfield does it, Rockford does it. Those are the 3 that come to mind. Most communities have gone to a council manager form of government, where the city council's one and only employee or direct report is the city manager. The council provides policy direction to the city manager, but the city manager does all the hiring and firing for everybody below him. Everybody reports to him, and the council, just provides the direction for him to or her to do the business. I frankly think it's a good model for a number of reasons. Typically, these city managers who I've served with a number of over the 21 years that I've been on the council, they bring similar traits to the table. They have a real broad range of knowledge, good administratively. Most are extremely good with budgeting and finance. They have a working knowledge of municipal law and the other things that they need to know. And the value that I see in the city manager form of government is its consistency, its stability. Every 4 years, when you have an election, you have a potential for someone to come in that doesn't have any idea how those different pieces of municipal government work. and really it's especially in this day and age when there's so many issues facing us, it could be pretty damaging to have someone come in that maybe disagreed with the way the previous person was doing it and just all of a sudden turn 90 degrees and put the foot on the gas. It really could impact a lot of things negatively. So that city manager, his broad knowledge and the stability that they bring, I think is really a smart way to manage a community. How the breakdown of responsibility goes. So the mayor is in Peoria is one of 11. I vote on everything. Some mayors just break ties. I vote on every issue. My vote has no more weight than any other council member. Obviously, it's really important for a mayor to have the credibility and the relationships with the council members to try to form and establish groups that can collaborate and move issues forward. If the mayor can't provide that leadership to the other 10, it could really get pretty hectic. So the experience, I think, of and serving for 6 years as a at-large council member really gave me a pretty in-depth look at how to establish those relationships, how some mayors work better or maybe not so good with other council members to collaborate on these different items. As you said, our city council has 5 at-large members that serve represented and are elected at large citywide. And then we have 5 that represent a specific geographic area of the city. Now they still vote on all issues too, not just issues in their district, but they're typically the go-to person for agenda items specific to their district.
Jim, if I understand the numbers right, the Peoria budget is about $200 million. Where does the money come from, and where does it go to?
Well, we get a lot of, part of it is property taxes. Almost all of our property taxes, unfortunately, these days go to paying pensions. We have a high amount of elastic revenues. Sales taxes off of majority or hotel, restaurant, and amusement taxes. So those, we call them HRA. So hotel, restaurant, and amusement taxes, a portion of those go to pay off our debt on our Civic Center and in the operations of the Civic Center. The rest of the sales, mostly sales taxes and a very small amount left over from property taxes go to just actually the day-to-day operations of running our city.
Jim, I've seen a couple of your talks on YouTube, and there's one topic that gets you pretty riled up. You speak with some passion, and that is the role of the state of Illinois and particularly the business climate in Illinois, and to talk about how the business climate in Illinois hurts a community like Peoria and constrains your work. What are your biggest concerns about Springfield?
Wow. I think we only had like 50 minutes for this conversation, John. It really, all due respect to the folks that get elected to go down to Springfield. It's not an easy job, and in the things that I just want to preface this before I unload. The things that they're dealing with, Republicans and Democrats alike, are dealing with things that have just been piled on for decades. And so, but it doesn't go away just because, they say it's not my fault, I didn't create this mess. Peoria, and part of it will, and I'll put a plug in for this rendering that's in my background here. That's going to be a new comprehensive cancer center that OSF hospitals are going to build in Peoria. That's represents almost $250 million. It'll feature proton beam therapy, and if we have time later, I can give you more of the bells and whistles on it. But we have an outstanding medical community. We have the University of Illinois College of Medicine is here. We have one of only 5 or 4 United States Department of Agricultural Research labs here. We have professional sports arenas. We have a huge civic center. There's a lot of Caterpillar, obviously. Their world headquarters moved up to Deerbrook, but Caterpillar, I would say most people still recognize Peoria as the original home of Caterpillar, and so on. I tell people all the time, John, if we could pick Peoria up, and not to mention it's just the beauty of this community sitting right on the Illinois River. If we could pick this community up and put it in any one of the states surrounding us, I don't care. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky. If you could put Peoria in any one of those other states, we would be rocking. We just would. I mean, we have that many different facets happening and things going good in this community. The challenge that we share with every other community in the state is the restrictions placed on business and the cost of doing business in this state. It's at a level right now where, people come here and they see all we have going and they're like, God, we love this community, but it's kind of scary to walk into a state that's so far underwater. And business knows that, when they're sucking wind and don't have anywhere else to go, they just think it's okay to keep raising taxes. And they've driven so many people out of the state already, and so many jobs out of the state already. And it's also extremely prohibitive for us to talk about new employers coming in. And so until Springfield can address these problems, and the biggest problem that we all face are the pension obligations, we're barely treading water. I'm giving the State of the City address next week, and it's kind of a bittersweet that this will be my 16th address to the community talking about what's going on here. And every year, literally since 2005, I've been hammering on this. We have to address the pension. And I sit on the board for the municipal league, and mayors from across the state were constantly fighting Springfield to address this pension crisis, and we're just not getting there. So I better take a breath here because you probably got a couple questions, but I do get very, very concerned about the ability for Peoria and other great communities across the state to attract new employers here. More jobs is what's going to increase our population and spread the tax base. That's what we need to do, and it's not going to happen until the pension situation is addressed.
Well, I know this is maybe an impossible question, but in broad terms, I mean, what is, as you see it, the solution to the pension crisis? I mean, I'm sure implementing it is difficult, but if you had to lay out the broad response that's appropriate, what do you think it is?
Well, I don't think it's recreating the wheel. I think that other states that have had major crises within their pension systems. In our case, it has to be a constitutional amendment to our state constitution. They did it in California. They've done it in other states. You have to go in and address the constitutional issue with this and allow us to make the adjustments that we make. We're not talking about taking what people have earned away. We're not talking about depriving them of that, but there has to be the ability for the state to go in there and modify it. The easiest thing I think for them to do would just be to change the amortization time of the pensions. Going way back into the early 70s, they actually said, in Illinois, we will have our pensions funded 90% by 2040, which, there was no rhyme or reason to that. It was 50, 60 years away. And so it sounds like, oh, we can do it by then. That's, you got these actuaries that are going to sit there and they're going to tell you this is how many people we have on pensions. This is what they pay into it. This is what the contributions need to get to 90% by 2040. What's the big deal? Well, unfortunately, over the years, Springfield continued, and up till literally 3 weeks ago, they just put another pension sweetener in for Chicago firefighters 3 weeks ago. We all know where we are, and we got to stop. They added more. I think they added $80 million a year to the city of Chicago's annual pension costs just by just another little sweetener. So that has to stop. 3% a COLA, 3% every year, compounded every year. Who gets that? I doubt the Simon Policy Institute has that type of a perk, but if they do, I'm glad for you. But they need to go in there and address, first thing they have to address, and the easiest thing they have to do, and they can do it without a constitutional amendment, is to go in there and to adjust that amortization period and say, look, it's not going to be 90% funded in 2040. It's literally impossible. There's not an actuary alive. There's not an actuary that is dead that could have figured out how you can possibly fund the amount of debt this state has incurred on local government and have that done by 2040. It's impossible. So you push that out and give us some breathing room. We're literally that light at the end of the tunnel is the proverbial freight train coming at us at about 220 miles an hour. And we can't get there.
Well, Jim, you made a reference to it earlier. A huge moment in the history of Peoria occurred in 2017 when Caterpillar announced that it was moving its corporate headquarters to the Chicago area. And, the argument was that it was just 250, 300 jobs. But the fear for a lot of people was that when the corporate headquarters is moved up to Deerfield, the corporate energy flows there, philanthropy throws there. I know when you and I were growing up, on every committee in the city, and I'm sure that it occurred for many years after I left, the chairman or the vice chairwoman was from CAT. So first of all, in terms of the decision in 2017, because I know they had been talking about building $1 billion, new global headquarters. Were you hearing some inklings that things were awry? So what kind of heads up did you get, and how has it affected the community?
Well, there's a lot there, John. We got a phone call on a Sunday night saying the new CEO at Caterpillar would like you to come down to the corporate office tomorrow morning because he needs to talk, which didn't happen very often. We'd go down there and have discussions, but it was always a meeting that was set up, a week or two in advance and compare calendars and make sure they're straight. So that was a little concerning in itself. And I got there, and so it was the new chairman and the county and the Peoria County Board, the new chairman of Caterpillar, the county board chairman of the Peoria County Board, and myself. And literally, we sat down, said hi, and he goes, "As kind of in the bearer of bad news, I wanted to let you guys know that we're not going to be building the new world headquarters in Peoria. It was going to be close to $1 billion, and it just be several square blocks in downtown and really iconic structure. They worked on it for years and spent millions of dollars designing it and did a big study, and the study determined that they would stay in Peoria and would build it. The CEO and chairman changed. The new chairman said, "Sorry, just want to let you guys know we're not going to build $1 billion new headquarters in Peoria." And need to tell you also that we're moving our team, our C-level team, up to Chicago area. So that was, I've described it many times as probably the toughest gut punch I've ever taken in my life. And it wasn't the type of meeting to get a reaction and to hear, you can't do that. What do we need to do? Let's talk about this. The decision was made. And so they proceeded to, after that, 45-minute meeting, as we're walking out the door, a news release was issued, letting people know that was the decision they made. So really tough to swallow. It was a real tough blow to. Let's face it. It's a huge ego thing for Peoria, a community of we're about 114,000 right now. We are, for your listeners, we're the largest metro area outside of the city of Chicago, but it was always very good for our ego and very good for Peoria to be able to brag, if you will, that we are the home of the iconic Caterpillar, and so that hurt. And it did have some impact on, I'd say it put a freeze on, the local business community for a while, because it's that, oh my God, Cat's going, we're going to plug. It's not just the leadership, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And how that whole thing gets moving. And so now that it's been a number of years and we're still pretty stable on their work, their other work products and the number of people here, we're still the largest. We have the largest concentration of Caterpillar employees in the area than anywhere in the world that Caterpillar has. We still have a large concentration of Cat folks here. We really do wish that the C-level folks and their support team were still here, but they're not. But we're moving along, and this. We talked a little bit about OSF hospitals, but 14 hospitals across the state, one in Michigan. Healthcare has assumed the role of the largest employer in the healthcare arena in the city. A lot of growth happening, and so Peoria's going to keep. We're going to keep plugging along. The Caterpillar thing hurt us, but other businesses are picking up the slack. And again, if we could get the state's finances in order, we'd have a lot easier time in attracting more growth into our state.
Jim, I heard you in one of your talks. You said something that really I was pleasantly surprised, even kind of astonished, that the University of Illinois Medical School in Peoria is one of the largest medical schools in the country. Is that right?
It is.
And that was something that actually I remember back in our day. Mayor Carver, I guess in maybe 1970, helped push for that. And I guess it does show that, the work of a mayor can have long-term consequences to a community. Because I know when that happened, I was just a little kid. I didn't really recognize its importance. But that was, in retrospect, a sort of monumental development.
Yeah, John, understatement. That was huge. And in the day, I think people were really kind of scratching their head, like, really. And not only was his ability to get it to Peoria, but the location. They were looking at putting it just a few blocks from where the Ag Lab is, or you and I know, it's a ways from where it's located downtown, but it's located right at the foot of Main Street, which is right across the street from Unity Point Health, and 2 blocks away from the OSF campus. So it literally, we consider that whole area to be a big medical campus where it's not just the College of Medicine, but the U of I actually built a cancer research facility on that property about 10 years ago too. So yeah, that's just been fantastic for our community. And Mayor Carver and another group of local leaders really pulled a big coup to make that happen here.
Well, Jim, you also talk about the importance of Bradley, and I guess that's interesting to us at SIU because the university here is so important to the whole region. But Bradley is in some sense a real kind of regional powerhouse. I know they have this really big state-of-the-art business engineering facility that's being developed. Talk about the importance of Bradley to Peoria.
Well, I'm glad you got a spot for me to segue into that, John, because Bradley is a very iconic university. It's known across the country and around the world for being an outstanding private institution. The engineering school certainly is they're very proud of that. Convergence Center that you alluded to was just finished here a little over a year ago. And it's a really unique model that blends the College of Business and the College of Engineering together under one roof. And, people understand, that engineers are really good at whatever their branch of engineering is, but in many cases, they don't really have and understand a lot of the business concepts that go along with engineering. So they married those two disciplines together, and it's a very successful enterprise up there at Bradley. But Bradley's also their speech team too. I mean, their speech team is world renowned. They have a number of very strong record of accomplishments by their speech team and how they perform, and really all the disciplines in between. And we all know that Bradley has a pretty legendary record in men's basketball over the years. They have a program that's we're on the comeback this year, but Brian Wardle is their coach, and he's building a team that is really going to be strong going forward. I hope we keep him here for a long time. But to have that type of a university in a community like ours, again, it's like a lot of the other amenities that I mentioned. We're very fortunate to have it, and it's truly an urban college. It sits right in the middle of our community. Does so much to strengthen the residential space around that, keep the home values up, attracts a lot of business to the area. And then, you just have the millions and millions of dollars that the kids that go to school there bring into our community, and the salaries that pay the professors and teachers there. The thing that Bradley is working with, that SIU is working with, and every other brick and mortar institution is trying to figure out now during and after COVID, is how the brick and mortar institutions of higher education survive. Okay, so we're just finding out that, well, for the last year, our kids have been paying, for the most part, full freight. Most of them are sitting in mom and dad's house, or some of them are sitting in their dorms, and not very many, but they're getting that college education, but they're doing it virtually. And how does that translate into paying the full freight of what it costs to go to a regular public institution, let alone a private school like Bradley? So how that's all going to work out, the impact of how much density are the kids going to feel confident in being at these, University of Illinois with 40,000 students there? So that could end up being a benefit to a smaller private school like Bradley. But all these working parts and pieces of the puzzle of how they're going to survive after COVID, I think that's one of the things that is challenging. I know that Steve Standiford we have a new president up there, and he's really engaged with the community. He's really engaged with the business community. Some of the alumni that are on the board, I mentioned the Shaddids earlier, but Jim Shaddid, who is your age, John, went to Peoria High School, is a very esteemed federal judge in Peoria right now, but he's also the chairman of Bradley's board. And this is high on the priority list for him and Bradley to figure out, how are especially the small private institutions going to be sustainable. And how are they going to be able to continue to provide the educations that they do, which are fabulous educations, but do it competitively and stay relevant.
Jim, I want to get to COVID in a second, but one thing that I've noticed in your talks, you make the pitch to people to buy locally and really impress. I mean, you had some numbers. I thought you said something like Peoria lost like $4 million in a recent year through sales tax, lost sales tax because of internet sales. Kind of restate your pitch. What do you tell, when you speak to people in Peoria about the importance of buying locally?
Well, I think, because of COVID, I think almost every community in the country is saying that now, just because we're losing so many of our local businesses to COVID. But we started talking about this 8-10 years ago as the internet really started to capture so much of our sales tax dollars. When you're buying stuff off the internet and through Amazon or whoever it is, in most cases, you're not paying a local sales tax on that. And it's huge. I mean, literally, it was before COVID. It was about $4 million a year that we figured we were losing because of internet sales. And that gets into a situation where the business community is, before COVID, trying to understand how they can successfully compete with the internet. It's pretty easy. You get online and you shop around, you see what you want, you hit a button and push in your credit card number, and the next day it's sitting on your front porch. Didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have to do anything, and if you don't like it, you send it back for free. That's tough to compete with. So we've for a long time been really hammering folks about it. We understand the ease of that, but you don't understand what happens, when this thing comes full circle. So when you're not doing that and the local mom and pop goes out of business, and a lot of other local mom and pops go out of business because they can't compete with that person who doesn't have your overhead, who's not paying your sales tax, is not paying your property tax, and all of those other things. And then all of a sudden, when all those other choices are gone, what happens is the price they don't have to have that razor's edge price anymore because they're not competing with anyone else. So not only have they effectively eliminated a lot of, and they're not all mom and pop little grocery, stores, or little hardware stores, some bigger stores that have been in our communities for a long time, just find that they can't compete with that. So we're consistently pounding, to help people. Yeah, it might not be the easiest and most convenient, but you have kids that might work there. You have family members that might work there. A lot of these companies have jobs that you can move up into good management positions and make good money. And then when you're working locally, you're spending locally, and that trickle down through the economy is huge. When you send all that money off to wherever Bezos' money goes to, you don't see any of that return, and the negative impact on our communities. I think it's something that people really are starting to understand. So we every day we pound on support our local businesses.
Jim, what, as you know, you've talked about COVID, and then also this summer, of course, the killing of George Floyd triggered a lot of unrest across the country. Peoria, I think there was a day of peaceful protests. The next day, there was some significant violence. A lot of discussion about just the kind of disparities between African Americans and whites in Peoria. I know you called for an intense dialogue. Where do things stand now in the kind of on the dimension of racial justice in Peoria?
Well, I think John, that whole spectrum is probably the common theme across every municipality in the country right now, and we're all addressing it in different ways, and I think different communities have different levels that need to be addressed significantly. We recently worked together with the county to put together a joint committee that would adjust a lot of this, just achieving racial justice and equity, giving the community a larger voice in these areas, a number of different verticals within that overall theme. We're really at a point right now where we're just getting ready to get that commission populated. So we are addressing that from a community feedback standpoint, but from where the community at large is, I think that the community has gotten much more comfortable in having these very uncomfortable discussions. Something that needs to happen. I think Peoria, we're the oldest. Peoria, Illinois is the oldest established community west of the Alleghenies. A lot of people don't realize, just how old this community is. We've been here for a long time, and so the core of our community, it's a very urban core, and we have a lot of issues that we're dealing with in that area. We have public schools are challenged. We have a lot of needs in some of those areas that we're trying to address, and I don't think Peoria's put our head in the sand and said we don't have any problems here. It's all okay. Dialogues have been open across the community. I think people are seeing that we're very interested and willing to have these discussions and better understand what does racial equity mean, and how can we make things better in our community.
Well, Jim, as you wind down your tenure, tell me a little bit about what made you decide not to run for re-election, and then to maybe speak more broadly, what is the best thing about being mayor of Peoria, and what is the most challenging?
Well, every year, so 6 years isn't a large member, and then the last 16 as mayor. Every year, including the first year, I had a discussion with my wife, and we just talked about what that would mean, sitting on the city council, and then 6 years after that original one, actually being the mayor in the community. And my wife was, in these positions, if you don't have your family supporting you and what you're doing, it's a recipe for disaster, not just for your family, but also for what you're trying to do for the community. I was very fortunate that my wife was very supportive, as were my kids. Of course, my kids were a lot younger 21 years ago, but this year's conversation was a little bit different, not from the standpoint of I didn't lose support. My wife said, if you want to do this again, we'll be behind you. I'm behind you, but we're going to be 62 this spring. We have a couple of grandchildren now. We're really kind of entering a different phase of our life, and the question was really like, yeah, we'll support you. Do you really want to do this till you're 66 years old? And it's just that much less time from family and a lot of the things that have probably been missed over the last 21 years. So it was not an easy decision, and I'm not shy to say that we prayed on it a lot. Not just over Mass one weekend, we prayed on it a lot. And I think that the consensus was there may never be a good time to walk away after a career like that, but you got to do it eventually. And we did it on our terms. So, we have good people that want to step up and move the city forward. And we actually made the decision, I was very comfortable with it. I think it was the right decision. But there's some regrets of not being able to be in that position to help the community. So, upsides and downsides to it. I mean, it's when things are happening in the community, like this comprehensive cancer center that I've plugged here a couple times, and other good, we have a ton of really good things happening here in the innovation space. We have some people that are doing things, and a lot of it are focused on medical innovation. But we have other people that are looking at doing very innovative things in our community too. So I predict that Peoria is going to be a shining spot in our state going forward because of a lot of these innovators and because of just the way Peorians are. I mean, we've recreated ourselves so many times over the years when we've needed to, and we'll continue to do that. I'd say the negative side is probably just politics in general. I mean, it's people are really, really, really fed up with politicians and with government. They feel like they're not being heard. They feel like elected officials don't care. I think it's a lot different here at the grassroots level. I really do, but you still have that hangover from the national and state elections that we just got done with, and people are very hesitant to engage with politics just because of how divided this country is politically.
Well, Jim, I saw one interview where you were asked to grade your tenure, and so the question was asked, and I was preparing myself for you to say, well, A minus, but you said C plus. And one thing struck me, first of all, from the people I know in Peoria, I think they would give you a much, much higher grade than that. I think people have been very pleased with your leadership, but I'm thinking how strikingly modest to assess your tenure and see it, see both the successes and failures. I mean, maybe you're caught off guard by that question, but we'll give you a chance to revise your grade if you'd like to.
No, not only do I appreciate you giving me a chance to revise it, but I appreciate the consideration that you gave it. I mean, people that don't know me, I'm really not the person that wants to talk about legacy and me. I mean, everything that we do it's a team. No one person gets a lot of things done, and I would rather just grade myself modestly. I was it's Spalding. I was not in your caliber of class. We were never in any class together, John. I was the C plus B minus student. You were the overachiever, and I like to think that I overachieved my abilities to be the mayor, to be an elected official for 21 years. I'm proud of that. I'm unbelievably proud of that I ran for office 6 times and was elected 6 times, and unbelievably humbled to be able to serve this community that I love with every inch of my being. But when it comes to grading myself, I always think I can do better. I always, you always, in hindsight, you can do better. And so I wasn't going to be the guy to grade myself a whole lot higher than that, and wish I would have been more moderate. I'm a pretty moderate guy. So from my perspective, that was a fair grade. you know, sometimes you get an A and sometimes you get enough. And, you know, that's sometimes you land like right there in the middle. And so I guess it is where it is.
Well, Jim, finally, I know you have, going off to some city business in a few minutes, but tell me a little bit about how you like to relax and unwind. I know you're a runner because I think you did this Memphis to Peoria, St. Jude run for a number of years. I don't know if it's been suspended because of COVID. I know you and your wife have, I think, 3 grown children and some grandkids. So how do you like to unwind and relax?
You know, I'm a really simple person. I don't, it doesn't take much for me. It's nice when I can to unplug and just, you know, if that means just going sitting on the front porch with my wife and having a cold beverage and talking, that's good. If we can get out of town for a few days, which doesn't happen very often, that's good. Before politics, I voraciously, but I read a lot, you know, just for fun, and that kind of that place got taken by a lot of reading of, you know, technical stuff and just municipal things that, you know, aren't real exciting and don't do much for you. So, you know, it'll be, you know, kicking back will be spending a lot more time with my wife, who has been very, very wonderful to share my time over 21 of our close to 35 years of being married. But reading, just taking it easy. And I'm not just going to sit in a rocking chair and go away. I intend to stay very active in the community. My real full-time position working for the OSF Foundation is going to be really important to me because of the things that OSF is doing in this community. This cancer center behind me. So this is probably the 4th time I've mentioned it, John, but it will definitely have a long-lasting impact. And I think it's going to literally transform Peoria. In the next decade, you will see the impacts of this cancer center transform Peoria into a Rochester, Minnesota type community for cancer treatment and other medical treatments associated with that. And I can play a really big part in helping that move forward with the foundation, and that's what I intend to do. So I can still help our community. I can still be a huge cheerleader for it, and I'm not going anywhere. I was born and raised here. I love Peoria. I wish we could, you know, shake the collar of our legislators to, you know, how does Illinois still be in the top 10 in GDP? You know, and with all these struggles we have, it's because we have so many great things going for us. We just need to get our financial house in order and make a big comeback. But I'm not going anywhere. It might be a little bit less political stress, but a lot more time with my wife and family and those I love. And I don't know, next time you get back to Peoria, I'd love to hook up and catch up in person.
I would like that, Jim. I was going to say I'd like to. One of my favorite restaurants in Peoria is the Lariat Club, where I had my first job. So maybe when I'm back, I'd love to take you out to lunch. And if you ever are coming down this way, we'd love to show you a bit of Southern Illinois and SIU and the Shawnee National Forest and other parts of the region.
Well, I'd love to take you up on that, John. So either way, if I head your way or you head if you head back home, I'd love to have some time to talk a little bit more. And I was really shocked when I got your invitation. Obviously, the Paul Simon Institute is, you know, very well known and very distinguished. I was proud to learn that, you know, one of my fellow alumni from Spalding was actually heading that organization up. So another feather in the cap of Peoria for people that are doing really good things around the country, and congratulations to you for that.
Great. Well, thank you, Jim, very much. Let's stay in touch and keep up the good work in Peoria and OSF. We really appreciate your insights today.
Sounds good, John. Have a great day.
Thank you. And
You're
thanks to all of
welcome.
you for watching another edition of our series, Meet the Mayor. We'll have a video of this interview on our website in the coming days. Please look at it and send it to friends. And thank you for continuing to support the Institute and keeping the legacy of Paul Simon alive and well. Thanks so much.